Tonight we're going to talk about the biodynamic preparations, and we can talk about them in two ways. Because we've got these two conversations going, we can talk about how they relate to these four bodies and how they move those bodies around directly. And then we can also talk about how they affect those same four processes once they're in the physical body. Okay, so we've got these two conversations that Steiner gives, and we've got indications of how we can use them in both these ways. The first way I'd like to talk about it though is the way that they affect these bodies. And okay, now we talked, I'd just like to do a little bit of a recap, because we've got to get how these four bodies are working into the physical body, okay? And so a big part is that these bodies are always working. In this picture, you know, this is where we're saying we've got the nerve sense system down here, where we've got these contractive processes taking place in the physical body. And up the top there, it's the metabolic region where we've got all these processes, expansive processes taking place. But in this picture, it's saying we've got the four bodies up there and we've got the four bodies down here. Okay, so they're always working. That's quite an important point. The dominant sort of process in the head is contractive, and the dominant process in the belly is expansive. Now, Steiner then gives us these words. He's saying that in this head system, we can identify that we have both of these activities occurring, that we have these cosmic activity taking place in the head, which is sort of dominant, but we've got that activity from the metabolic system working in, and it is expansive. So we can identify in our head system one contractive and one expansive process, okay? And the same happens in our bellies, that we get these expansive and contractive. Now, the interesting part of this story is that all of the four activities are happening here, right? But so when we come to this cosmic contractive process, it means that the astral and the spirit are identified there. Okay? So when you're talking about the cosmic activity in the head, you're talking about spirit as dominant and astral as secondary. Still there, but it's secondary. The spirit is dominant. And over here, we're saying that in the head, the physical activity is working, dominant, and the etheric is secondary. When we come to the belly, that's all reversed around. That in this cosmic activity, the astral becomes dominant and the spirit is secondary. And over here, the etheric is dominant and the physical is secondary.
How do you read that on that diagram? Is it actually said on that diagram? How can you...
What I've just told you isn't said on that diagram.
Yeah.
What Steiner talks about
Yeah.
is earthly forces. Now the earthly forces are expansive, and that relates to the etheric, right?
Yeah.
When we come over here, he talks about cosmic substance, and it's the contractive. Now, for many years, I just went, that's astral, that's etheric, this is physical, this is spirit. But when I read the medical lectures and you start talking about how you're going to be dealing with a shrunken kidney, he starts talking about in the belly here, you're wanting this astral activity, but you're still needing the directive forces of the spirit to be able to bring that sort of message of what that kidney should be doing. It's got to be there. The architect's got to be there, but the active principle that's stimulating everything is the astral. And so he makes it quite clear that all four elements are always working in each of the systems. It's not clear in biodynamics, but it is in the medical lectures.
Okay.
And it sort of makes sense, because it's how can you have one of these things without the other? You know, when we're talking about the silica process coming from the autumn and being brought down into the soil by the sand and crystallised by the silica, and then moving back up in the spring, what happened to that astral? We dragged all that astral into the ground, and, you know, where did the spirit come from? You know, all of a sudden the spirit appears and we've got the spirit moving up, but where's the astral? And the point is they're both there. The light and the warmth is coming in from the bottom, from the top, being dragged into the soil. And the warmth then dominates, but that light process, that astral process, is still there. And that is both moving upwards from the bottom, not just the spirit activity, it's actually spirit astral. And in a sense, that's why he's using the term cosmic forces. Because it's not just spirit. It's not right for him to just say this is spirit. This is the astral and the spirit that is coming from below. So, you know.
Can you go over once more which is dominant?
Oh, dominant. Okay.
Things that aren't that drawing.
Okay. So, the cosmic processes, right, which is the silica processes, which is the light and the warmth coming in the autumn, being dragged down into the soil, and around midwinter we have this crystallisation process taking place, and then they move back upwards again in the springtime with the help of clay, back upwards to push the plant to meet the light and warmth that's up in the atmosphere that's going to cook and ripen the plant. Okay? So this is that process of the silica, the cosmic process. So you've got astral and spirit there, but the astral is dominant. As you come down here, the spirit becomes dominant and the astral is secondary. So in the nerve sense system, it's all about the spirit that's doing the business. Our thinking, me being able to rationally talk to you now, is because my spirit is incarnated. If my spirit wasn't incarnated, I'd be sort of spacey and dreamy and waffling about and not having a straight line of thought. You know, the spirit is dominant here. Whereas here, we don't need my belly to be thinking, we need my belly to actually be active. We want stuff to get moving so that we can get the digestion cooking. So we don't actually need the spirit so much in the belly. We need the activity in the belly. And so, you know, that's... Okay, so with the earthly side of the story, which we talked about being all of this calcium that's in the ground from the living beings that have been left over, and how that gets drawn up through the plant and is transpired out into the atmosphere to create this sort of living homeopathic calcium, which is then drawn back down into the soil and helped by the humus. Okay? So that's the story that we're telling here. Is that this calcium process, so the physical is dominant here, and that when that moves up, it deals with tissues. It makes nice, solid, structural tissues. And then as we move into the top area here, this is where we're seeing the etheric as being dominant. And so this is where the plant grows bigger. We get mass formation coming out of this etheric. Now this is a really good place for us to be sort of talking about 500, this cow manure preparation that Steiner talks about.